Southbourne Church, welcome to our last installment of this wonderful series we've been doing called Holding On to Hope. Our verse for this series comes from Colossians 1:27, talking about Christ in me, the hope of glory. Not this kind of hope like, oh, I hope it rains. Not an uncertainty, but a certainty that if I have Christ, I am going to heaven. Just a quick recap. How can we hold on to hope? We've talked about prayer, about developing a relationship, a monologue versus a dialogue, having that conversation with God and allowing Him to speak, about Bible reading. It's so important to get into His Word and get His Word into us, about fellowshipping with other believers, and when we lift each other up, we all rise. We talked about being intentional. David encouraged himself in the Lord about talking to yourself, but not listening to yourself, and that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. We've talked about trusting in God and in His faithfulness, and that trust is an exchange of control. We've talked about prioritizing properly. Sometimes things in our life, our schedule gets flipped upside down. Talking about putting God first and foremost in our life. We've talked about some of the promises that God has given us. And the last thing that I'd love to speak with you guys about is the last and maybe the most important is to demonstrate and walk in it. The way that you increase your faith is to increase your obedience. Let me say that again. The way you increase your faith is to increase your obedience. You build your faith through obedience. There's so many examples in the Bible that we could use, but one of them for me that just kind of jumped out was in Joshua chapter 3. The children of Israel are about to go and cross the Jordan River and start conquering the promised land that God has given them. And Joshua makes this statement and he goes, we're going to cross the Jordan, and here's how we're going to do it. And in verse 13 it says, as soon as the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, I love that, set foot in the Jordan, its waters flowing downstream will be cut off and stand up in a heap. Now, what does that have to do with demonstrating or walking in the things that God has for us? Well, when you step out, God steps up. When they took that first step, they had to step in water. They walked into water so that God could stop the water. When you step out first, then it allows God to step up. This is the same thing in chapter 6 of Joshua. You fast forward a little bit, and if you know the story, they're walking around the walls of Jericho, which seems absolutely insane until it wasn't. The seventh day, if you know the story, they walked around 7 times. And when they made the loud shout, when they heard the trumpets and they made this loud shout, the walls of Jericho came crumbling down and they just walked right in and took the city. They had to do something crazy. Before God stepped out, or before God stepped up, they had to step out. They had to do something completely crazy, completely unconventional before God would do what only God can do. So I don't know what it is in your life, what you're going through, but one of the ways we can hold on to hope is to obey Him, to step out. We've talked about putting the Word of God inside of us, but now it's time to walk on the Word of God, that when you step out, God will step up. And here's the beautiful part. God has it worked out. You just have to walk it out. God has it worked out. You just have to walk it out. I hope that this series has blessed you. I hope that you have been holding on to hope, that this has given you actionable steps to encourage you, to uplift you, to challenge you, and hopefully with this last one that we can all walk it out together. God has it worked out. You just have to walk it out. I pray that you would be blessed the rest of this week. Be blessed as you come and as you go, and we'll see you on church on Sunday.